everyone, Jess here at Aviation Festival Asia, and today I'm joined with Con Korfiatis, CEO of flyadeal.
Hi Jess, how you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. Thank you for joining me today.
It's my pleasure.
So firstly, how has the overall rate of tech adoption evolved in Saudi Arabia in recent years?
It's phenomenal actually. I mean, primarily driven by very young demographics. So Saudi Arabia is a country of 36 million people. About 25, 26 million are Saudis, and there's about 10 million expatriates. It's a very young demographic, particularly the Saudi demographic. About 70% of the population is under the age of 35.
Wow.
And therefore,
Wow.
you can imagine in today's digital era, in today's age of social media, they're very, very high adopters of that technology. On a per capita basis, across most of the major social media platforms, it would rate in the top 3 markets in the world. So phenomenal is the short answer.
That creates a very sort of nurturing ground, I guess, for the way
Very
you're
much so. I
running
mean, it just fits the demographic absolutely perfectly. And I guess to some extent, Saudi Arabia is going through a massive transformation as a country. And, given its sort of roots, social media has been a great outlet in just life, right? Just general in life. But now, it's morphing into something far more and opening up. But regardless of that, the social media and the digital life is at the core of everything. And we see that across industries. We see that in retail. We see that in B2B. We see that across healthcare, really all facets of it. And it's a very strategic focus, as for most countries. But really, I see a real doubling down in investment in Saudi Arabia in this space.
Amazing. And then, so continuing on with technology, how are you seeing technology being used to address the shift in passenger expectations post-pandemic?
Well, we did something when we launched flyadeal that we think was a first. We launched the airline completely digitally.
Wow.
So, I mean, no newspapers, no billboards, no radio, no TV, purely social media channels. And in a way, it was a little bit of an experiment. I've done 5 startups in my life before. There was no social media when I did it the first time. There has progressively come more into life as I've gone along. But really, we would have thought, even with where we are today, that would have been an ambitious ask. And the result was people took to it immediately. Our planes were full day one, and we found we didn't need to diversify away from that strategy. So we grew a whole comprehensive domestic network with that digital strategy of going to market. And it's been incredibly successful. 60% of our domestic bookings are done on a mobile platform. And we're now, we're so enthused by that, we're very, very heavily investing in expanding the suite of things you can do on the mobile platform to really give it the full end-to-end solution for anything any of our customers could ever want. So that's the dream. We're in progress, but it's entirely feasible, and it's really what the customer demographic is looking for in Saudi Arabia.
Amazing. And do you find there's a level of agility that comes with this digital first strategy?
Absolutely. It's just changing all the time. I mean, we're a young airline. We're 5 years old, and the amount it's changed just in that 5-year period is just phenomenal. And and it's evolving on a daily basis. So you've just got to stay attuned. I mean, if you look at even between the social media platforms and how you communicate and the sort of things the way things were being done on social media, you think of the prevalence of perhaps Facebook, 4 or 5 years ago, and how that's morphing over the most recent years. And that's not going to stop. It's not at a mature level. There's always going to be evolution in this space. So it's just going to be a case of we're just going to have to stay on top of what's most relevant at the time and adapt. And that's reality now.
Absolutely.
Agility is everything.
Yeah. The only thing that's certain is change, isn't that what they say?
Absolutely.
So we've heard a bit about the positives. Could you highlight some of the challenges that come with being a digital-first airline and how you overcome these?
Well, life's become always on. So, there used to be, years ago, you could sit there and say, well, we run customer service between 9 and 5 on a Monday to Friday, or in our case, a Sunday to Thursday in Saudi Arabia. There was an opportunity, and people did switch off at certain times, right? And, in a digital age, you're always on. And therefore, for example, our social media command center, and we have one, in the airline. It's something years ago I would never have thought of. It runs 24/7. So there's always somebody on. And we have our own internal KPIs and SLAs around how quickly we respond to things and what we push through those channels and the like. And I think you've just got to be prepared for everything. I think some of the other challenges is a lot of what comes up in social media is taken as it must be the reality, and sometimes it's not. But it's out there in the whole world, and you couldn't sort of stay on top of these things the way you used to in the past. So again, comes back to agility and being there and being responsive when you see things, to be on the front foot in terms of how you deal with whatever's going on, whether it be some really good news, whether it's something that's a challenge or some disruption or whatever we're dealing with at the time.
That's great. Thank you for elaborating on that. So what are some of the most significant factors influencing your digital transformation? I imagine COVID's played a role and other things.
COVID's probably accelerated things because we were all forced to isolate, right? So whatever we were doing in a human face-to-face sort of interaction all went away, and we had to find digital solutions to all of that. And we moved to moving to a digital life, and in many parts of the world and in many industries, people are saying this is now the norm and it'll never go back. Thank God in our industry, we're very much about customer. I mean, we fly people around. We don't fly machines around, right? And we don't put mobile phones on a seat and fly them anywhere. And people still, there is that human element to it. So it's an interesting balance of human and digital. But it's COVID certainly pushed us into a digital investment on a larger scale, even if it wasn't large already, much more so.
Fantastic. And you mentioned about the balance between personal and person and digital. Something that we've spoken about before is how age can change your relationship with technology, and it's better suited to a younger population. So would you say that's an area where your sort of younger, mobile, active demographic is? It would be a generalisation to say that is the case, but I'd say it's really we're people at the end of the day, and we're individual, and we all have our loves and our hates and things that we're preferences and non-preferences, and so I don't think you could necessarily stereotype it and say, listen, if you're over 50, you got no idea about digital and social media and being involved and have no interest. That would be unfair, and as much as to say people under 30 don't want any social interaction with human beings, that would also be not incorrect, right? So I think it really comes down to the individual. Obviously, perhaps maybe why we draw the conclusion that an older generation isn't as fully adoptive as perhaps a younger generation, maybe because they lived through an era where they also saw different things, right? And if you're born today, you're going to be brought up from the minute you can crawl, right? Social media savvy and digitally savvy. I mean, when I did my first airline launch, which was here in Singapore, actually, we launched Jetstar as a low-cost airline 20 years ago. There was no social media, right? So, I know something else as well as I know what today is. And frankly, if I answered for myself, I'm as immersed in my phone and what's on there as anybody else is. I'm not sure it's completely healthy 100% of the time, but I do enjoy it as well. But I do, and it's the world we live in, and I do enjoy it as well. So, but I also love this also, right? So it's much better doing it this way than looking at you through a screen. Absolutely, yeah, I agree. So finally, what do you enjoy about coming to Aviation Festival Asia?
First of all, I guess this one becomes a bit more special than once. I've been coming to these for more than 20 years. What makes this one particularly special is this is the first one I've attended post-COVID. I haven't been in Singapore since 2019, and the ability to come back, connect, and there's so many people here that I know, but also by the same token, what's really telling, even from 19 until now, and I look at what's in our hall here, is it's predominant, it's absolutely dominated by tech.
Yeah.
And I would have said, back in 19, and if you go back much further than that, there's always been a tech element to it. I mean, this industry's had technology in it since before I was born, but it's becoming so much more prevalent, and it's so much more relevant in life. And because of the agility requirements, if you can only achieve that agility through technology. So there's a lot more of that. But reconnecting with the industry, reconnecting with old friends, and I think at the same time, it's an opportunity to see what's going on. Sometimes you get caught up in your own little microcosm of life where you are, but there's a big world out there and lots of different people experimenting with different things, and no one has a monopoly on the knowledge. So these sorts of opportunities, we get to see lots of different people and hear different ways of doing things, and we learn.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for making the time to speak with me today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you too.